My name is Isabella Orth, though everyone calls me Bella, and I'm 29 years old. People say breakups are like explosions, loud, violent, unforgettable. Mine wasn't like that. It ended with the smell of roasted garlic in the air and the quiet clink of forks against plates. That Tuesday evening still plays in my mind like a scene caught between dream and nightmare. The sunset filtered through our apartment blinds, throwing golden stripes across the living room. The chicken I'd made sat untouched on Daniel's plate. His phone buzzed for the third time in 10 minutes, face up screen, lighting his expression, with a glow I had grown to hate. I remember noticing details that should have been meaningless, but somehow felt like clues. The way his knee bounced nervously under the table, how his laugh had grown a half-second late whenever I cracked a joke, how his sentences kept circling back to Emily from work. Emily, always Emily. She's so creative, Bella, you'd love her ideas. Emily has this perspective that's so refreshing. You should hear the way she thinks outside the box. At first, I thought it was harmless. Then, over weeks, Emily's shadow lengthened. His phone, once abandoned on the couch for hours, became an extra limb. His texts made him smile in ways my presence no longer did. And when we sat side by side, I could feel him slipping inch by inch orbit, drifting further away from mine. That evening, he didn't sit next to me on the couch. Instead, he dropped into the chair opposite, creating an invisible chasm between us. He curled his legs up defensively like a child hiding from punishment. That posture used to stir something protective in me. Now it only made me feel cold. Then he said it. Bella, we need to talk. The words every woman dreads. My throat clenched tight, but I nodded, waiting. I love you. His voice wavered, and for one foolish second, hope sparked in my chest. Then he smothered it. You're my best friend. You're my person. But that word hung there like a guillotine. But I feel like we've just become roommates. There's no spark anymore. It's comfortable, yes, but it's not passion. Not what I need. I stayed silent. Half a decade together, and comfort had been exactly what we built. Safety, loyalty, the ease of being known. Wasn't that the point? He pressed on, desperate to fill my silence. I've been talking to Emily a lot. And there it was. The name again. The ghost that had been haunting us finally spoke through his lips. She makes me feel alive. She wakes up a part of me I didn't even know was asleep. Bella, it's not your fault, I swear. It's just, we want different things. His voice broke like this was agony for him. I stared at the man I thought I knew, and all I saw was performance, the rehearsed lines of someone trying to cast himself as the tortured hero of a romance he didn't deserve. I swallowed hard. So what do you want, Daniel? His eyes searched mine, pleading for understanding. I need to see if this connection with Emily is real. I can't live with the what if. I'd regret it forever. The audacity stole my breath. He was breaking my heart and asking me to cheer him on while he did it. I whispered, So you're leaving me, for her. It's not that simple, he said quickly, tears sliding down his face. It's not about leaving you, not fully. What we have is too special to throw away. You're my best friend. That's why this is so impossible. I need you in my life, even if I'm exploring with her. He looked at me with that twisted expression, grief tangled with excitement. He wanted me to remain his safety net, his security blanket, while he tested passion with another woman. And then he said it, the words that etched themselves into my bones. I need to explore this connection with Emily, but can we still be us? Can we still be best friends? The silence that followed wasn't just silence, it was an abyss. The clock didn't tick. The fridge didn't hum. The world stopped. I looked at the man I had given 5 years of my life to the man I thought I would marry. His tears made him believe he was the victim, not me. He wanted to shatter everything we had, then keep me close so he wouldn't feel guilty about it. Something inside me broke, not loudly but cleanly, like ice cracking under pressure. The begging words died on my tongue. The pain folded in on itself, replaced by something sharper clarity. He had shown me exactly who he was, and I would not be his second option. I stood up, his eyes widened, expecting me to fight, to plead, to promise, to reignite our spark, to outshine Emily. Instead, I gave him exactly what he wanted, or what he thought he wanted. Okay, one word, neutral, final. Not agreement to his insane request. Acceptance of his choice. The sound of a door closing. Confusion swept across his face, breaking his script. Okay, what does that mean? I didn't answer. I turned, walked down the hall, and closed our bedroom door behind me. Inside, in the dim glow of a single lamp, I stood frozen for a moment. My chest should have been heaving. My eyes should have been wet. But all I felt was an eerie calm. In the living room, I heard him sobbing, calling my name through muffled sobs. I didn't respond. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the closet. Then I stood, pulled down my 2 suitcases, and laid them open. The decision had been made for me. Now it was only a matter of execution. The storm wasn't outside. It was in here, and I had decided to step out of it. And though Daniel thought this was just the start of his grand adventure with Emily, he didn't realize that for me, for us, the end had already arrived. It hadn't come with shouting. It hadn't come with violence. It had come with one quiet word. Okay. The sound of my own breath filled the bedroom. Daniel's muffled sobs leaked through the closed door like the whimpering of a stranger, not the man I had loved for 5 years. I looked around the room at the traces of our life together, the sweaters draped over the chair, the mismatched books on the shelf, the framed photo of us on a hiking trip grinning with sunburnt cheeks, arms slung around each other like we owned the world. All of it felt foreign now, like artifacts in a museum exhibit labeled Once Upon a Time. I unzipped the first suitcase. The sound was sharp final cutting through the silence like a blade. The work was methodical. Dresser drawers opened, clothes folded with mechanical precision. Shoes lined up neatly. I didn't bother with hangers. I wasn't preserving the life I was leaving. I was dismantling it. Every object carried a memory, and every memory felt like it belonged to a stranger. The Vonnegut novel Daniel had bought me from a dusty bookstore on our first trip together. The scarf he'd draped around my neck one icy winter morning, laughing as he kissed my cold nose. The mug he'd given me that said best girlfriend ever, ironic now. I paused with that mug in my hand. For a moment, I almost felt the ache of sentimentality. Then, without a second thought, I placed it in the leave-behind pile. I wasn't going to take his tokens of guilt and pretend they were treasures. The bookshelf was harder, our histories intermingled. His thrillers next to my memoirs, our joint collection of travel guides we once promised to use. My fingers brushed the spine of One Japan on a budget. We had always said someday. Now, someday had expired. I only packed what was undeniably mine. My toothbrush, my notebooks, my laptop. I left the rest behind as though shedding a skin that no longer fit. Daniel's voice cracked outside. Bella, please, can we finish talking? Don't shut me out like this. I still love you. You know that, right? My hands stilled for a heartbeat. Once those words would have undone me, but now they felt hollow like echoes in an empty cave. I didn't answer. Silence was my answer. The photo on my nightstand, youths laughing in the sun, faces flushed with life, caught my eye again. For one dangerous moment, the ice in my chest threatened to crack. My hand trembled as I picked it up. I didn't throw it away. I didn't keep it on display. I laid it face down at the bottom of the suitcase, buried under socks. Not a memory to cherish, but evidence of a closed case. By the time an hour had passed, the suitcases stood upright, full, but not bursting. My life condensed into 2 bags and a file box. It felt lighter than I expected. The living room had gone quiet. Maybe he'd worn himself out. Maybe he was texting Emily, already seeking comfort in her arms. The thought didn't sting. It just confirmed what I already knew. I was no longer part of his story. I pulled out my phone and sent a single message to Hannah, my best friend since college. Are you awake? Need a ride? And maybe your couch for a night or 2. Her reply came instantly. Always. Where are you? I'll be there in 15. I stared at the screen, warmth spreading in my chest. Unlike Daniel's empty declarations, Hannah's words had weight, reliability, loyalty. I zipped my suitcases closed. The sound was final, sealing off 5 years of my life. In the hallway, I rolled the bags toward the front door. Each step felt like reclaiming ground I hadn't realized I'd lost. Daniel's sobbing had shifted to silence. I didn't dare look into the living room. I didn't owe him a performance. My phone buzzed. Hannah outside. I slipped on my coat, lifted the handle of the suitcase, and turned the knob. The apartment behind me was dim, a hollow shell of laughter and love that had expired. I didn't leave a note. There was nothing left to say. I opened the door, stepped into the night, and closed it softly behind me. The cool air rushed into my lungs, clean and sharp. The city hummed with life, indifferent, eternal. Hannah's car idled at the curb. She popped the trunk, her eyes scanning my face, then the luggage. She didn't ask questions. She didn't need to. You okay? She asked softly. I will be, I whispered. She nodded, helped me load the bags, and slid back into the driver's seat. As we pulled away from the curb, I glanced back once at the apartment window glowing faintly in the distance. Daniel was in there crying over a choice he thought was profound, but I knew better. He thought he had left me hanging in limbo, begging for scraps of his affection. But the truth was simpler. He had already lost me, and the silence I had chosen was louder than any goodbye I could ever say. As Hannah turned the corner, my phone buzzed again. A message from Daniel, frantic clinging. "I know you need space, but please just let me know you're okay. We can still talk about this. I still love you." I stared at the screen. His words weren't love. They were control disguised as concern. I opened his contact. My finger hovered over the option. Block this caller. The pop-up appeared. "Are you sure?" I pressed yes. One by one, I blocked him everywhere. Instagram, Facebook, Messenger, his sister Chloe, his closest friends. Any thread he could tug to drag me back. By the time Hannah pulled into her driveway, Daniel was gone from my digital world. For the first time in weeks, I felt something new. Peace. The apartment smelled of paint and possibility. When the landlord handed me the keys, I remember staring at the plain white walls, the unscuffed floors, the small kitchen with spotless counters. It was nothing special, just a modest one-bedroom tucked on the third floor of a building with thin walls and no elevator. And yet it felt like freedom. I set my suitcases down in the middle of the bare living room. For a long time, I just stood there, letting the silence wrap around me. This wasn't the suffocating quiet of Daniel's apartment, heavy with secrets and unsaid words. This was a silence I could own. Still, when the door clicked shut behind me, the weight of solitude pressed in. There was no familiar hum of his voice in the other room. No clatter of him making coffee. No footsteps pacing the hall. Just me. The first few days were disorienting. I built routines like scaffolding around a collapsing structure. Morning runs at the gym, long showers, cooking for one. I forced myself to fill the void with small rituals. At night, I'd sit by the window with tea, watching the city lights blink against the darkness. For the first time in years, no one was texting me questions like, "What's for dinner?" or "Can you pick up groceries?" or worse. Emily said the funniest thing today. The silence was strange, but it was also mine. Sometimes my hand twitched toward my phone. Muscle memory. Aching to share something with Daniel. A funny billboard. A podcast quote, a random observation. But then I'd remember. He wasn't mine to share with anymore. And maybe he never had been. Weeks passed. I unpacked slowly, not rushing to decorate. My life had shrunk down to essentials, clothes, books, a laptop, everything else I'd left behind because it wasn't worth carrying. For 3 weeks, the fortress of silence held. No texts, no emails, no calls. He hadn't found a way through. I allowed myself to breathe. Until one Saturday morning. An unknown number flashed across my phone screen. My stomach lurched. Instinct screamed to reject it, so I let it ring out. The voicemail notification blinked soon after. For a long time, I stared at it, torn between curiosity and dread. Against my better judgment, I pressed play. His voice filled the room. Cracked. Raw. Not the rehearsed sobs of that night, but something desperate panicked. "Bella, it's me. God, I made a mistake. A huge mistake. Emily, it's over. She isn't who I thought she was. It was all just words, all empty. Please, please call me back. I really need to talk to you. I need my best friend." The message ended with a muffled sob. For a moment, I closed my eyes. If this had been a month earlier, those words would have shattered me. I would have run to him, arms open, eager to be the salve to his regret. But now the only thing I felt was a cold, quiet satisfaction. Not joy, not revenge, just the solid weight of truth. He had chosen. He had lost. I deleted the voicemail and blocked the number. The silence returned stronger than before. That night, as I lay in bed, I realized something important. His words, "I need my best friend," weren't about me at all. They were about him. His comfort, his guilt, his fear of being alone. He didn't miss me. He missed the safety net I had always been. I wasn't his net anymore. Days later, another email arrived. Not from Daniel this time, but from his sister Chloe. The subject line, "We need to talk about Daniel." I almost deleted it unread, but curiosity betrayed me. "Bella, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I'm seriously worried about my brother. He's a mess. He's not eating. He's crying all the time. That thing with Emily blew up. Apparently, she just used him to make her ex jealous. It's pathetic. Anyway, he's devastated. I know what he did was wrong. But are you really going to abandon him after 5 years over one little mistake? He loves you. He realizes that now. He's learned his lesson. The least you can do is talk to him. Just a conversation. You are his best friend, for God's sake. don't be so cruel. I read the email 3 times each line, sharpening my anger. One little mistake. That's how they saw it. Not a betrayal. Not a calculated decision to gamble our love against someone else's thrill. Don't be so cruel. As though my refusal to be his emotional bandage was the true crime here. My lips curved in a humorless smile. They still didn't understand. The cruelty hadn't been mine. It had been his. I didn't reply. I marked the email as spam, closed my laptop, and felt nothing. For the first time in years, nothing was exactly what I wanted to feel. Chloe's email should have been the end of it. I thought marking it as spam, dragging it into the digital trash, would seal that door permanently. But families have a way of prying open locks you thought were ironclad. 2 days later, another message slipped through from a different address. Bella, please. He's not himself. He talks about you constantly. He regrets everything. He's punishing himself. Isn't that enough? Just meet him once. Give him the closure he needs. Closure. The word made my stomach turn. Closure for him meant reopening wounds for me. I deleted it without finishing. But Chloe didn't stop. She called from numbers I didn't recognize. She even left a voicemail, once her tone condescendingly sweet. Bella, honey. I know you're hurt, but don't you think you're dragging this out a little too long? 5 years can't just vanish like that. Be the bigger person. I listened once, then I deleted her too. I had built my fortress of silence brick by brick, but Daniel's family was determined to climb over the walls. They painted me as heartless while excusing his betrayal as a phase. I held my ground. Until one evening, the war left the digital world and arrived on my doorstep. It was a Wednesday night. I had just finished dinner, a simple pasta dish I ate alone at the small kitchen table. The hum of the fridge was the only sound steady and grounding. Then the buzzer rang. I froze fork halfway to my mouth. No one ever came unannounced. My circle was small. Hannah would text before visiting my coworkers never crossed personal lines, which left only one possibility. I walked slowly to the intercom, every step heavy with dread. The grainy camera feed flickered to life. It was him, Daniel. His hair was messy, as though he'd been pulling at it. His eyes were red, face pale, lips trembling. He wore the gray hoodie I'd seen him in countless lazy Sundays, but on him now it hung like armor that had lost its strength. Bella, his voice crackled through the speaker. It's me. Please let me up. My chest tightened. Memories rushed in uninvited, that same hoodie when he'd carried me through a rainstorm, his laugh echoing in the stairwell as we stumbled inside. I crushed them down. Those memories weren't anchors anymore. They were chains. No, my voice was flat, almost mechanical. You can't. His head jerked up, searching for the camera. His eyes widened like a drowning man spotting a lifeboat. Please, Bella, just 5 minutes. I need to explain. I made a mistake, the biggest mistake of my life. Emily, she used me. She's gone. She meant nothing. It was always you. Always. His words tumbled out in gasps, frantic, desperate. I said nothing, I just watched. His hands pressed against the glass door, shaking. I was stupid. I was confused. I thought passion was what mattered, but it was empty. You're home. You're everything. I need my best friend back. I need you. Tears spilled down his cheeks. For a second, an old instinct tugged at me, the urge to open the door to soothe him, to believe the words. But then I remembered his words. That night, spoken with conviction, I need to see if my connection with Emily is real. And suddenly his begging sounded hollow. No, I repeated, my voice colder this time. You made your choice. His expression crumpled, grief twisting into something darker. So that's it. After 5 years, you're just going to abandon me when I need you the most. Abandon him, as though I had been the one who strayed. Anger bubbled up sharp and clean. You ended us, Daniel. Don't you dare twist it. He slammed his palm against the door, the sound echoing through the stairwell. For a moment, I thought he might break the glass. Then his shoulders slumped, and his sobs returned softer this time. I released the intercom button and stepped back. His voice still bled through distorted begging, but I didn't answer. 5 minutes later, the building door creaked open and slammed shut. The stairwell went silent. I stood in the middle of my apartment, heart pounding. A part of me shook with adrenaline, the aftershock of confrontation. Another part felt stronger. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was solid, reinforced. He had tested my resolve in person, and I hadn't cracked. But deep down, I knew this wasn't over. Daniel's desperation had just crossed a line, and desperate men rarely stop at locked doors. The days after Daniel appeared at my door felt different. The air in my apartment seemed sharper, as though the silence itself was bracing for impact. I went about my routine gym work, cooking for one, but underneath I carried a gnawing awareness he wasn't done. And I was right. It happened on a Friday night. The city outside hummed with weekend laughter, footsteps on sidewalks, muffled music leaking from bars. Inside, I sat curled on the couch with a book, a candle flickering on the table beside me. For once, I almost felt settled. Then came the knock. Not the polite, tentative kind. This one was sharp, insistent, vibrating through the wood. My heart lurched. No one else it could be. I approached cautiously, peering through the peephole. Daniel. Again. His hair was damp, as if he'd just showered in a panic. His eyes glistened red and swollen. He looked smaller somehow, shoulders hunched, body folded inward. Bella. His voice cracked as he knocked again. Please, I just need to talk to you. Just 1 minute, that's all. I pressed my palm flat against the door, grounding myself. Go home, Daniel. Please, he begged. I know I ruined everything. Emily. She used me. She told everyone we were just friends. She made me feel like I was special, but it was all fake. I was stupid. I see that now. I only want you. I only ever wanted you. His words spilled out with urgency, like if he stopped, the silence would crush him. I didn't respond. He pressed his forehead against the door. I can't sleep. I can't eat. Every second without you feels like I'm dying. Bella, I made a mistake. A huge, huge mistake. Please let me in. Please. The sobs were real this time, raw, not rehearsed. For a second, my chest tightened. I remembered the boyish grin that had once made me fall in love with him, the way his hand fit mine like it was made for me. I remembered the promises whispered under blankets, shouted in laughter during road trips, spoken solemnly during fights we swore we'd survive. But then, like a blade, another memory cut through his voice, saying, I need to explore my connection with Emily. Can we still be best friends? That sentence had gutted me, and no amount of begging would erase the truth he had chosen her. He had discarded me. I drew in a steady breath. No, Daniel, you don't get to rewrite history. You made your choice. This is the consequence. Silence, then a sharp inhale. When he spoke again, the tone had shifted. The desperation curdled into bitterness. So that's it. After everything I gave you, after 5 years, you're just going to slam the door in my face when I'm broken. When I need you. I almost laughed at the irony. When I'm broken. As though my pain had never existed, only his mattered now. You need me, I said flatly, but when I needed you, you were with her. His face twisted anger flashing across his features. God, you're so cold. Heartless. No wonder we lost our spark. You don't feel anything. You just sit there silent like a wall. Maybe Emily was right too. He stopped himself, biting the words back, but the damage was done. For a moment, the old Bella might have shattered, might have screamed, thrown open the door, begged for answers, for validation. But the woman standing here now didn't break. She let the silence speak for her. I pulled my hand from the door and walked back into the living room. He called out my name again, pounded the wood once more, but I didn't turn back. Minutes later, the hallway echoed with the sound of retreating footsteps and the slam of the building's main door. I collapsed onto the couch, heart-pounding candle still flickering beside me. My chest rose and fell in heavy bursts, but beneath the adrenaline was something steadier. Relief. He could beg. He could rage. He could twist the story until he was the victim and I was the villain. But none of it mattered, because for the first time I wasn't playing my old role in his drama. I was writing my own script now, and in mine Daniel didn't have a part. The weekend after Daniel's visit was strangely calm, the kind of calm that feels borrowed like borrowed time. I knew he wouldn't stop. His silence was never silence. It was the inhale before another storm. And I was right. By Sunday night, my phone buzzed with a new number. At first, I let it ring out, but the text came seconds later. Coward. One word, sharp as glass. I stared at it expressionless. Not because it didn't hurt, but because it hurt far less than he thought it would. Another buzz. You think you're better than me? Sitting in your little empty apartment pretending you don't care. You're pathetic, Bella. Cold. Empty. I gave you everything, and you just walked away like it meant nothing. A year ago, those words would have gutted me. I would have curled up in bed replaying them until I convinced myself he was right. That maybe I was cold. Maybe I was unlovable. Now they were just noise. I set the phone face down and returned to my book. The candle beside me flickered gently steady where his rage was not. More messages poured in over the next hour. You never really loved me. No wonder we lost our passion, you killed it. Emily was right, you're incapable of love. I'm glad I found out before I wasted more years on you. Each line was a dagger he thought would pierce me, but instead they landed dull, harmless. His anger wasn't a revelation. It was proof. Proof that I'd finally cut the strings that once made me dance to his tune. I blocked the number without reading the rest. The fortress of silence grew stronger. But something inside me stirred, not pain, not sorrow. Reflection. He had once been able to make or break me with a single look, a single sentence. I had lived in constant fear of displeasing him, of losing him, of not being enough. Now the same man spat venom, and I felt steady. That steadiness was more than relief. It was transformation. I sat back, phone silent, room quiet, and realized something profound. Walking away hadn't been cowardice. It had been the bravest thing I'd ever done. Daniel wanted to cast me as the villain in his story, the cold woman who abandoned him when he was at his lowest. But I knew the truth. I hadn't abandoned him. I had finally chosen myself. And that choice terrified him more than losing me ever did. Later that night, as I washed dishes at the sink, I caught my reflection in the darkened window. My face looked different somehow, sharper, clearer. Not because I had stopped loving him, but because I had stopped letting his love define me. That was when I knew. I wasn't just surviving him anymore, I was outgrowing him. And that scared him more than my silence ever could. For days, the silence held. My phone stayed still on the counter, no buzzing, no flashing unknown numbers. It should have felt like victory. But late at night, lying in the dark, I kept thinking about the words he'd spat at me. Cold, empty, heartless. Not because I believed them anymore, but because I realized something chilling. If I didn't speak now, if I didn't end this on my terms, those would be the last words tethered between us. And I refused to let that be my final chapter. So one evening, as the city outside my window glowed with neon lights and the hum of late-night traffic, I picked up my phone. I unblocked his number. My hands didn't shake. My chest didn't tighten. I wasn't doing this for him. I was doing it for me. I opened a blank message and let the words flow calm, deliberate, unflinching. Daniel, I learned everything I needed to know about love from you. Specifically, what it isn't. You asked if we could still be best friends. But friends don't demote each other to second place while chasing someone else. Friends don't demand loyalty while offering betrayal. What you asked for wasn't friendship, it was control. I've built a life now where my peace is non-negotiable. That life doesn't include you. Do not contact me again. I read it over once. It wasn't cruel, it wasn't bitter, it was truth stripped of theatrics. I pressed send. The message sat there on the screen, delivered, waiting. I imagined him reading it, imagined the rush of anger, denial, maybe even guilt. But none of it mattered. Because this time, the words weren't for him to carry. They were for me to release. Without hesitation, I tapped his name again. Block this caller. The confirmation popped up. Are you sure? I was sure. I set the phone down gently on the table as though placing a final stone on a grave. My chest expanded with a long exhale I hadn't realized I'd been holding. This wasn't relief. This wasn't triumph. It was something deeper. Closure. Not the closure Chloe had begged me to give him. Not the closure Daniel had demanded with his tears and his anger. My closure. For the first time in months, I didn't feel haunted. My silence wasn't a wall anymore. It was a doorway. A threshold I had finally stepped through. I poured myself a glass of water, sat at the window, and let the city's glow wash over me. Outside, life continued. Cars honked. Strangers laughed on the street below. Somewhere music played faintly through an open window. The world was vast, alive, waiting. And for the first time, I felt ready to meet it without him. The night after I sent the final message, the world felt different. Not louder, not brighter, just lighter. I woke the next morning to sunlight spilling through my curtains, warm and golden. For the first time in months, I didn't reach for my phone immediately, half dreading what might be waiting there. The screen was blank. No calls, no messages. Just silence. But this silence wasn't sharp anymore. It wasn't a void pressing in on me. It was space. Room to breathe. I made coffee, slowly savoring the smell, the steam curling in the air. The clink of the spoon against the mug was ordinary, yet it felt profound. Ordinary was beautiful again. I carried my cup to the window and looked out over the city. From up here, I could see people hurrying along the sidewalks, taxis honking, shop owners rolling open their shutters. A million stories unfolding, none of which revolved around Daniel. And for once, neither did mine. The irony wasn't lost on me. I had given him 5 years of my life, my love, my patience, my loyalty. And in return, he had given me heartbreak. Yet buried in that heartbreak had been the most valuable gift of all clarity. I finally understood the difference between comfort built on lies and peace built on truth. He had begged me to stay to be his friend, to hold his hand while he explored someone else. He had demanded I play a supporting role in his self-discovery, his failures, his regrets. But I had learned that love doesn't beg for second chances when it already threw away the first. And peace doesn't come from clinging. It comes from letting go. I thought back to the girl I had been in that apartment with him, staring at her boyfriend across the couch, suffocating under the glow of his phone screen, waiting for the inevitable blow. She had been terrified of losing him, terrified of silence. Now standing here in my own apartment, cup warm in my hands, city humming beyond the glass, I realized I wasn't that girl anymore. The silence wasn't something to fear. It was my sanctuary. I sipped my coffee, watching the morning unfold. Somewhere inside me, a quiet promise took shape, not to Daniel, not to anyone else, but to myself. That my peace would always be non-negotiable, that I would never again let someone make me small in the name of love, that walking away could sometimes be the bravest kind of staying true. The city stretched wide before me, alive with possibility. And for the first time in years, so was I. Daniel was no longer